The morning sunlight filters softly through the cream-colored curtains, casting warm, golden rectangles across the living room. I kneel on the floor, smoothing out the satin table runners I'd spent hours ironing last night, each crease meant to symbolize the perfection I hoped this day would hold. The smell of fresh lilies mingles with a faint trace of vanilla from the cupcakes cooling on the counter. Everything is supposed to be beautiful. Everything is supposed to feel like the beginning of the rest of my life. My phone vibrates. I glance down. Another unanswered text from my sister, Madison. She promised she'd handle the final deposit confirmation with the venue, but now silence. The tiny pang of worry coils in my stomach, but I push it aside. Maybe she's just caught up with work or traffic. I stand and adjust the centerpiece on the dining table, roses in blush pink and cream, each petal carefully arranged. My niece, Lila, toddles past, giggling and clutching her stuffed bunny. "Auntie, cupcake?" she asks, her voice high and innocent. I laugh, scooping her up. Her tiny hands stick frosting onto my cheek, and for a moment, the world feels right. This is what I fought for: love, family, celebration. Lila's laughter is a tether to hope. Outside, the driveway remains stubbornly empty. The florist was supposed to arrive 30 minutes ago, and the rental truck that's supposed to deliver the chairs is still nowhere in sight. My fingers drum nervously on the counter. Each delayed text from Madison tightens a knot I can't ignore. The hours I've spent planning, budgeting, dreaming, it all rests on her following through. I try to focus on the invitations spread across the counter, each envelope labeled with a careful hand. The soft hum of the air conditioner and the distant chirping of birds provide a false calm. I rehearse the steps in my mind. Venue confirmed, chairs, cake, and finally, my groom waiting, smiling at me from the altar. But the image falters. The absence of a confirmation gnaws at me. I kneel beside Lila as she tries to pin a tiny paper flower to her dress. "It'll all be fine," I whisper, more to myself than to her. Her small head tilts toward me, sensing the tremor in my voice. "You worried, Auntie?" she asks. I force a smile, brushing her hair back. "Just a little, baby. Nothing we can't handle." The sound of a car door slamming outside makes me glance toward the window. But it's not Madison. It's a neighbor, waving briefly before disappearing into their own house. Another missed signal. Another reminder that today may not go as planned. I step into the hallway, phone in hand, and for the third time, check the thread of messages. No response. A cold draft slips under the door where the rental company should have delivered the chairs, a subtle whisper of what's already wrong. I lean against the wall, pressing my forehead to the smooth paint. All the warmth I had, love, excitement, joy, feels like it's seeping out. The lilies, the satin, the cupcakes, they stand witness to the worry now blooming quietly in my chest. I take a deep breath and step toward the living room again. Lila's little fingers cling to mine, her innocent eyes wide. "They'll come, right?" she asks. I kneel, holding her tiny hands. "Yes," I say, trying to believe it as much as I tell her. But the pit in my stomach refuses to settle. The text from Madison could arrive at any moment, and I know, just know, that it might bring more than disappointment this time. A shadow falls across the window, and I freeze, hoping against hope. The moment I had built every plan around feels fragile. Something in the air tells me today's happiness isn't guaranteed. And as I watch the empty driveway one last time, the first flicker of doubt settles in, small but insistent, like a candle trembling in the wind. The morning unfolds like a fragile paper boat drifting in stormy water. I dial the florist again, holding my breath. "Hello, yes, I'm calling about my delivery," I say, trying to keep my voice steady. Silence, then a soft sigh on the other end. "Ma'am, your order hasn't been paid in full. We can't release the flowers." My stomach drops. My hands grip the counter, nails pressing into the smooth wood. I step outside to find the rental truck parked haphazardly across the street. The driver shrugs. "No payment, no chairs. Venue said she'd handle it." The words hit me like a punch I wasn't ready for. Madison. Of course it had to be her. The $28,000 deposit I entrusted to her hands, the cornerstone of our wedding, had vanished into thin air. Inside, Lila's giggle cuts through the shock. She's stacking her little toy blocks, oblivious. I crouch down, trying to force a smile. We'll fix it, baby. Don't worry. But inside, a storm brews. My mind races, tracing every interaction, every promise. The cheerful morning now tastes bitter, a thin layer of icing on a cake I can't eat. I call Madison. Again. The call goes straight to voicemail. I leave a message, carefully measured. Please confirm the deposit. We need the venue to finalize. The phone buzzes silently in my hand. Hours pass. The silence grows heavier than the sun-soaked room, suffocating in its intensity. An unexpected knock at the door diverts me. My Aunt Claire steps in, her eyes wide with concern. She brings a small plate of cookies and a cup of tea, her hands shaking slightly. I heard, she says softly. Are you okay? I manage a nod, but the tears prick the corner of my eyes. I tuck them behind a forced smile, sipping tea that tastes of nothing. The cupcakes on the counter, once perfect, now seem mocking. Frosting slightly smeared from my morning attempts, half melted in the heat. I stare at them, thinking of all the work, the planning, the love invested, now teetering on the edge of ruin. My vision blurs. Lila looks up at me, her little brow furrowed. Mommy, why are you sad? The words are simple, but cut deeper than anything Madison has ever said. A notification lights up my phone. Madison, text. You're overreacting. I took care of it. Stop stressing. My fingers tremble as I read. Overreacting? The deposit is missing, the venue is threatening penalties, and she sends a dismissive line like it's nothing. I feel numb, the betrayal settling like a stone in my chest. I glance at the driveway. Empty. The chairs, the decorations, the flowers, nothing has arrived. The street outside is quiet, indifferent to my panic. My mind jumps to the wedding coordinator's words earlier, the looming penalties of $210,000 if the deposit isn't secured. A figure so huge it feels unreal, yet terrifyingly real. I sit on the edge of the couch, Lila climbing onto my lap. Her small arms wrap around me, her presence a fragile tether to sanity. The anticipation I had carried for months has crumbled. Every smile I offered, every reassuring word I gave, now feels hollow. The room feels smaller, heavier, the walls echoing with the absence of responsibility. I try calling Madison once more. Straight to voicemail. The day stretches on like an unending gray ribbon. I watch Lila's innocent eyes, her tiny hands clutching a block, her question lingering. Mommy, why is everything broken? And in that moment, I realize that hope, delicate as it was, has begun to fade. As I sit on the edge of the couch, Lila playing quietly beside me, my mind drifts backward, to all the times Madison had taken advantage of my trust. The wedding deposit wasn't her first transgression, it was merely the most devastating. Growing up, she had always found a way to make herself the center of every situation, often at my expense. I remember one Christmas years ago when our parents gave us each a small stack of cash for gifts. Madison insisted I give her my portion, promising she'd buy gifts for both of us. Naive, I handed over the money. Weeks later, I discovered she had spent it all on herself, leaving my best friend empty-handed. At the time, I told myself it was okay. She was my sister. Family comes first, but the disappointment lingered. High school brought similar patterns. Madison would borrow money for prom, for textbooks, or even for a weekend trip, always promising to pay me back. And she rarely did. $500 here, $1,200 there, small amounts on paper, monumental to me at the time. The responsible one label followed me everywhere. Teachers, relatives, even my friends assumed I would manage what she couldn't. My own needs were secondary. Her whims came first. College didn't improve things. When she applied for student loans, she leaned on me as a co-signer, never once planning for repayment. I did it because I wanted to help because she was my sister. I thought families supported each other. But the late notices, The escalating interest, the calls from collection agencies, they became part of my life, a constant reminder that my kindness could be exploited without consequence. Even in adulthood, Madison's manipulations continued. She would guilt-trip me into covering rent, paying bills, or lending thousands of dollars with excuses ranging from, "I'm in trouble," to "I don't know what I'd do without you." I often felt trapped, a silent hostage to her charm and tears. And yet, I kept trying. I wanted her to succeed, to be happy, but the price was my own peace. The most vivid memory comes from a small family gathering last summer. Madison posted a picture on social media, smiling in front of a luxury car, captioned, "I finally got what I deserved. Thanks, sis." The post wasn't meant to celebrate me. It was a public announcement of her taking credit for my hard work. My stomach sank. The betrayal wasn't hidden this time. It was on display for everyone to see. Friends, family, acquaintances, it all broadcasted a truth I had felt for years but now couldn't ignore. Madison didn't value my efforts unless they directly benefited her. I remember sitting alone in my apartment that evening, staring at the screen, counting the times I had trusted her. Each instance, each dollar, each promise, it piled up, a mountain of unmet expectations. And now, the $28,000 wedding deposit? Another peek in a landscape shaped entirely by her exploitation. I'd tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. I'd tried to see the sister I wanted, not the sister who existed. But patterns don't lie. They scream. The vividness of her betrayals is almost cinematic. I can still feel the warmth of my living room turning cold with the realization of each lost opportunity, each misused act of trust. Every memory, every borrowed sum, every excuse, it all converges into the stark clarity of today. The wedding isn't just jeopardized. It's symbolic of every time I allowed myself to be used, every time I swallowed disappointment to keep the peace. I open my laptop, scrolling aimlessly, trying to distract myself. That's when I see it. Madison has posted another photo. The caption reads, "Booked my dream venue for sister's wedding. Who knew $28,000 could do so much?" My fingers freeze over the keyboard. Public humiliation, financial betrayal, emotional manipulation, all rolled into a single image for the world to witness. The screen glares at me. Lila tugs at my sleeve, looking up innocently, unaware of the storm this image represents. And in that moment, clarity strikes. This isn't an accident. This is a pattern. This is deliberate. The trust one extended, the love I offered, it has all been exploited repeatedly. I lean back in my chair, staring at the post, feeling the sharp sting of disbelief turn slowly into resolve. It's not just about the deposit anymore. It's about every single time I allowed Madison to cross my boundaries and walk away unscathed. A few days later, the tension in my apartment has become almost physical. Every corner, every surface reminds me of the wedding I've been planning, the smiles I wanted, and the $28,000 that was now vanishing into Madison's hands. I try to focus on Lila, on folding napkins, on making the living room look perfect, but my phone keeps buzzing. Madison. Again. This time, it isn't a short, dismissive text. It's an email, formal and cold. Subject line: immediate payment required. My hands shake as I open it. The words hit me like ice water. She claims that the venue deposit was mismanaged by me and demands an additional $15,000 to cover her expenses. Her tone is smug, almost taunting. I read it twice, then a third time. My chest tightens. My fingers curl around the edge of the table. I feel a wave of nausea, the pulse in my temples loud enough to drown out the quiet hum of the refrigerator. I can't believe what I'm reading. Not only has she taken my money, she's now demanding more. This is beyond carelessness. It's deliberate. I glance at Lila building her block tower. Her innocent concentration pierces the haze of anger and disbelief in my mind. I want to shield her from this chaos, from the manipulation, from the suffocating weight of someone exploiting my trust so casually. I inhale slowly, trying to steady my trembling hands. The phone buzzes again. Another text. "Don't try to play the victim. You knew what you were doing." Wire it by noon. By noon, the venue is already threatening $210,000 in penalties if the deposit isn't verified. My jaw tightens. Every fiber of me wants to explode, but I force myself to stay composed, pacing the room. Memories from the past flood in, the Christmases, the borrowed money, the social media posts, the unpaid bills. Madison's pattern of exploitation is crystalline now. I see it clearly, every moment etched into my life, and a cold clarity settles in. She'll never change. Every apology, every excuse, every sweet word she's ever offered was a temporary mask, a lie wrapped in charm. I sit down at the kitchen counter, head in my hands, trying to process the impossible. This isn't just about money anymore. It's about control, manipulation, and the repeated undermining of everything I value. The anger starts to build, slow and deliberate. Not the reckless, frantic kind that explodes and disappears, but a focused, simmering force that demands action. For the first time, I see a path forward, not as a victim, but as someone reclaiming her life. The realization strikes me like lightning. I don't have to let her dictate my future. The deposit, the wedding, the joy I've been building for months, it's still mine to protect. No one can take that without consequence. I glance at Lila again, her little hands covered in block dust, and feel the spark of rebellion ignite inside me. I will not be manipulated, coerced, or humiliated. Every ounce of frustration, every pang of betrayal, funnels into a quiet, steely determination. Madison has pushed me too far this time, and for the first time, I am ready to fight back. I close my eyes, imagining the venue, the flowers, the laughter, and the ceremony I deserve. The thought fuels me, my heartbeat sinking with the growing resolve in my chest. This isn't just about the deposit anymore. It's about drawing the line, setting boundaries, and finally, saying enough. The phone vibrates once more, but I don't answer. I don't need to. For the first time in years, the power isn't hers, it's mine. And the spark that will ignite the rebellion flickers, small but unyielding, deep in my core. I sit at the kitchen table, Lila perched on the counter beside me, and take a deep breath. The anger that had simmered for days now transforms into clarity. No more calls. No more texts. No more letting Madison dictate my life. The $28,000 wedding deposit isn't just money. It's my effort, my love, my dream. And I will protect it. I open my online banking app and stare at the numbers. Accounts, balances, transfers. I've been meticulous for months, saving, planning, budgeting. My fingers hover over the screen. For years, I allowed her to borrow, to guilt me into compliance. But today is different. Today, she won't get another cent without accountability. I send her a single symbolic dollar back, a tiny acknowledgement of the absurdity of her demands, and nothing more. Then I move to lock the safe, where I've kept wedding checks, invoices, and sensitive documents. The click of the lock is loud in the otherwise quiet apartment. A small sound, but it carries the weight of reclaiming control. For the first time in years, I feel the air around me change. It's brighter, lighter, freer. I glance at Lila, who has stacked her blocks into a precarious tower. Want to help me make it taller? I ask. She beams, her innocence grounding me. Together, we carefully add the last few blocks, each one a tiny victory, a reminder that life can still be beautiful amidst chaos. Lila's laughter echoes through the apartment, filling spaces that had long been occupied by anxiety and frustration. The emails, calls, and threats from Madison pile up in the background, but I do not answer. I create an organized spreadsheet, tracking every dollar, every transaction, every contract. For once, everything is accounted for, secure, untouchable. I see the numbers clearly. Deposits confirmed, penalties covered, contingency plans in place. I feel a brief, intoxicating sense of relief. The chaos she thrived on no longer has power over me. Later, I take a deep breath and step into the living room. Sunlight streams through the windows, hitting the freshly arranged flowers I had feared would never arrive. I sit down, Lila in my lap, and let myself breathe. The act of asserting boundaries, though small, sending $1, locking the safe, confirming payments, feels monumental. Each deliberate choice reinforces that I am no longer a passive participant in Madison's manipulations. I call the venue directly, confirming the deposit with a calm, controlled voice. The representative on the other end reassures me everything is secure. I hang up and lean back, a sense of empowerment washing over me. The joy is small but unmistakable, a quiet rebellion in the midst of lingering tension. The symbolic acts continue. I cancel Madison's access to the shared credit card, change passwords, and notify the vendors directly of any correspondence. Each small decision is a brick in the wall of my regained autonomy. The apartment, once filled with uncertainty, feels cleaner, more ordered, mirroring the clarity in my mind. That evening, I cook a simple dinner for Lila and me. The aroma of roasted vegetables and garlic fills the air. We eat together, laughing at her tiny mispronunciations, and I realize that freedom, even in small doses, tastes sweet. The inner quake that had gripped me for years softens, replaced with a calm sense of authority over my own life. Finally, I step into the hallway, looking at the locked safe, the spreadsheet on the table, and Lila's content smile. Everything I had feared was slipping away. The wedding, my dreams, my peace, now feels secure. The first decisive act of rebellion has been completed, and with it comes a profound sense of control. Madison's attempts to manipulate me have been met with resistance, and I know, without a doubt, that I will not bend again. The sunlight outside begins to fade into a soft evening glow. I sit back, breathing deeply, feeling the air around me light and clear. For the first time in years, I feel rooted, anchored, untouchable. The small victories, the $1, the locked safe, the confirmed deposit, stacked together like blocks, building a fortress of autonomy and resolve. The apartment is quiet, the chaos paused, the tension momentarily broken. And in that quiet, I feel the unmistakable thrill of empowerment. The rebellion has begun, and I am standing firmly on the other side of it, unshaken, unafraid, fully aware of the control I've reclaimed. The sound of pounding on the front door rips through the apartment like an alarm. My heart jumps, but this time, I don't panic. I know who it is before I even open my eyes. Madison. Her voice, sharp and accusing, pierces the walls. Open this door. You can't just ignore me. I stand, calm but resolute, and walk to the door. Lila hides behind my legs, peeking up with wide, worried eyes. The door shakes under another slam. My chest tightens, but my hands are steady. For years, I allowed her chaos to dictate my reactions. Not today. Through the peephole, I see her, red-faced, flustered, holding papers and her phone like weapons. A neighbor pauses across the street, watching, curiosity painted across their face. Madison doesn't notice. She is in her own storm, thinking intimidation will bend me. I open the door just a crack, keeping Lila safely behind me. Madison, I say, calm but firm. This ends now. I will not give you anything beyond what is owed legally, and you've been informed of that. Her eyes widen in disbelief. You can't do this. I demand. She stops mid-sentence as a knock echoes behind her. It's the venue manager, holding a stack of documentation and a polite but firm presence. I'm here to clarify the deposit and penalties, he says. Everything has been accounted for with her. The $28,000 deposit is verified. Your attempts to interfere have consequences. Madison's face flushes, a mixture of anger and panic. She shouts, her voice carrying into the street. This isn't fair. You're ruining everything. The neighbors now peer from their windows, phones raised, recording snippets of the confrontation. The spectacle is real, and Madison's attempts at manipulation are unraveling in front of an audience. I feel Lila's small hand clutch mine. Mommy, they're yelling, she whispers. I kneel, brushing her hair back. I know, baby, but we are safe. Nothing can shake us. Her wide eyes look up at me, and I feel the surge of moral clarity. My calm is the shield that protects her. My boundaries are now walls she cannot breach. Madison tries one last tactic: threats, accusations, tears. But the venue manager stands firm, reiterating the penalties and confirming my rights. I do not shout. I do not argue. I simply hold the space, the calm eye of the storm. My voice is soft, but it carries authority. Enough, Madison. This conversation is over. The neighbor across the street offers a supportive nod, and even a passing friend from work stops, silently witnessing the ordeal. I realize something profound. I am not alone. People can see the truth, verify the facts, and the moral weight is on my side. I am standing in clarity while she flails in desperation. Madison storms off, muttering threats that dissolve into the distance. The sound of her car fading down the street feels like the closing of a chapter. The pounding of the door, the shouting, the flashing tensions outside, they all fade into silence. I take a deep breath, letting the tension leave my shoulders. Inside, the apartment is quiet again. Lila sits on the couch, hugging her stuffed bunny, watching me with trust-filled eyes. I bend down, holding her small hands, and whisper, "We are safe now. You don't need to be afraid." Her smile is shy but genuine, a tiny beacon of hope. I look around at the room, the flowers still arranged, the paperwork organized, the locked safe humming a small, satisfying click. Everything that was threatened has been protected. My first act of rebellion has led to this confrontation, and I realize calm, deliberate boundaries hold more power than anger or shouting ever could. For the first time, the chaos that once terrified me is reduced to a memory. I have stood my ground, enforced my limits, and maintained moral clarity. The victory is quiet, steady, undeniable. The storm has passed, and we remain untouched in the eye of it. The morning after the confrontation, sunlight spills gently through the kitchen windows, painting the apartment in soft gold. The chaos of yesterday lingers faintly in the air, but it no longer feels threatening. It feels conquered. Lila sits at the counter, coloring with her tiny crayons, humming softly. I watch her, breathing in the normalcy that now seems fragile but precious. There's a knock at the door. My heart flutters, a residue of yesterday's tension, but I open it to find my neighbor, Mrs. Patel, smiling warmly, holding a plate of freshly baked banana bread. "I thought you might like this," she says, stepping aside to place it on the counter. "Saw what happened yesterday, just wanted to help." Her simple act of kindness floods me with a quiet relief I hadn't realized I craved. Not long after, my coworker Ben drops by, carrying a gift card and a bouquet of flowers. "I figured you could use a little brightness today," he says. I manage a small laugh, a real one this time, feeling the heaviness of yesterday start to lift. The world is not just filled with manipulation and betrayal, it's also filled with quiet, genuine care. I sit down at the table with Lila, unpacking the small packages of kindness, and suddenly, the apartment feels larger, lighter, more alive. The difference between obligation and generosity becomes glaringly clear. These people, these moments, are given freely, without expectation, and the contrast to Madison's demands is stark. Later, I start to organize the paperwork that had been scattered across the living room during the confrontation. Each invoice, each confirmation, each note from the venue feels like a stepping stone back to control. I track the finances meticulously, double-checking deposits and payments. For the first time in months, the numbers make sense, and there is even a small surplus, proof that order and diligence pay off in ways chaos never could. I notice how the air seems to feel clearer, the light brighter. Every small act of care, every smile from a friend or neighbor, begins to stitch the frayed edges of my nerves. Lila giggles as she places a crayon crown on my head. "Queen Mommy," she declares. The words bring a laugh from me, soft and unforced, a sound I realize I haven't made in days. I take a moment to step into the living room, surveying the space. The flowers bloom, the papers are stacked neatly, and the locked safe sits quietly in the corner. Even the cupcakes, slightly disheveled, seem triumphant in their own way, symbols of persistence and effort. I realize that life doesn't need perfection to feel full. Support, kindness, and care are enough. A handwritten note slips out of one of the envelopes Ben had left. You're doing the right thing. Boundaries are strength. Keep going. I read it twice, letting the words settle in my chest like warm sunlight. Healing is not about dramatic gestures. It's about small, consistent acts of care, of choosing support over obligation, trust over fear. As the day draws on, I take a deep breath and glance around the apartment. Lila is napping, the sunlight stretching across the floorboards, and I feel a tangible lightness. The house no longer feels like a cage of tension and debt. For the first time in months, it feels spacious, breathable, and safe. I sip a cup of tea, savoring the warmth, and allow myself a small, genuine smile. The boundaries I've enforced, the acts of rebellion, and the support now surrounding me create a rhythm of life I can rely on. Madison's chaos has been replaced with calm, and the subtle, steady kindness of people who truly care has begun to fill the spaces she left empty. Standing by the window, looking out at the quiet street, I feel a profound sense of relief. For the first time, the world seems capable of generosity, not just exploitation. And as I watch the sunlight scatter across the walls, I whisper to myself, almost in disbelief. For once, the house felt bigger. Weeks pass, and the apartment hums with a steady rhythm I hadn't realized I craved. Mornings begin with sunlight spilling across the kitchen table, Lila's laughter filling the air as she helps me prepare breakfast. I chop vegetables, hum softly, and watch her tiny hands mimic mine. Simple routines, once taken for granted, now feel like triumphs. The wedding planning continues, but this time, everything is in my control. I contact vendors directly, confirm details, and maintain meticulous records. The chaos of misplaced deposits and manipulated deadlines is gone, replaced with certainty and quiet satisfaction. Each completed task reinforces a sense of confidence I hadn't allowed myself to fully embrace before. Lila thrives in the calm. She reads confidently, draws elaborate pictures, and greets neighbors with newfound confidence. I watch her grow, feeling the tangible impact of a peaceful environment. Every giggle, every small achievement, feels like a reward for the boundaries I've finally enforced. Madison attempts a few cautious messages, veiled apologies disguised as casual check-ins. I read each one carefully and decline politely but firmly. The temptation to engage is there, but the lessons of the past months anchor me. I will no longer allow manipulation to enter my life, no matter how soft or familiar it feels. A new friendship begins to bloom with a coworker, Emily, who stops by one afternoon to return a book I had lent her. We linger over coffee, laughing easily, sharing stories of past struggles and small victories. There is no pressure, no exploitation, just genuine connection. It is refreshing, grounding, and a stark contrast to the tension Madison carried into my life for so long. I spend evenings repainting the living room, choosing soft blues and warm creams. Lila watches, her tiny brush leaving streaks alongside mine, giggling at our collaborative mess. The walls become a canvas for renewal, a physical manifestation of the life we are rebuilding. Fresh flowers occupy the windowsills, and photographs capturing laughter and milestones line the shelves. Each small detail reflects control, peace, and joy, the life I've chosen for myself and Lila. The weekends are quiet, filled with visits to parks, small adventures, and simple routines that once seemed mundane. Grocery shopping becomes a mindful act, cooking becomes creative therapy, and bedtime stories feel like sacred rituals. Each moment is infused with intention, a celebration of the life I now protect. One evening, as the sun dips low and spills orange light across the freshly painted walls, I glance at the photograph I had taken the week before. Lila, smiling broadly, her arms wrapped around my neck. Next to it, a small pot of newly planted flowers catches the glow. These symbols, paint, blooms, laughter, stand as markers of growth, resilience, and the reclamation of our lives from the chaos Madison left behind. I sit back on the couch, Lila curled beside me, and feel an unfamiliar, steady joy. The freedom I had glimpsed during my first acts of rebellion has become a lived reality. My routines, my environment, and my relationships now reflect choice and autonomy, not compulsion or guilt. As night falls, I place the last brush aside and step back to admire the room. The walls are bright, the shelves orderly, and the air carries a gentle warmth. The renewal is complete, not just of space, but of spirit. This home, this life, is ours. Protected, intentional, and thriving. The apartment, once a site of betrayal and tension, now radiates calm and hope. Every detail, from the planted flowers to Lila's laughter, affirms that we are rebuilding not just a home, but a life we control, a life we cherish. Months have passed. The apartment feels alive in a way it never did before. Lila races around the living room, her laughter echoing like music, while sunlight streams across the freshly painted walls. Today is her birthday, a small celebration filled with balloons, cupcakes, and friends who genuinely care. I watch her carefully, adjusting the streamers and placing the gifts neatly on the table. Each package, each decoration, is a quiet testament to the life we've rebuilt. Nothing feels precarious. Nothing is contingent on anyone else's whims. The sense of ownership, of control over our happiness, is deeply satisfying. A small knock at the door interrupts our morning. I open it to find a delivery from Emily, my friend and coworker, bearing a bouquet of cheerful flowers and a card. For Lila, and for you, for all the strength you've shown. I smiled genuinely, realizing how much has changed. We are surrounded not by manipulation, but by quiet, steady support. Even Madison's presence has diminished to a distant memory. She sends occasional texts, carefully polite, but I ignore them. I have no need to engage. The boundaries I set months ago have held, and they continue to protect the life I've built. Each interaction, or lack thereof, reinforces that respect and trust cannot be demanded. They must be earned. I glance at Lila blowing out her birthday candles, eyes wide with excitement. In that instant, the memories of the stolen deposit, the threats, the confrontations, all of it, feel like distant shadows. We have moved forward, building a life rooted in clarity, care, and choice. The wedding, now safely planned and secured, stands as a symbol of resilience and foresight. Later, I sit quietly in my journal, pen in hand, reflecting on the year that has passed. I write of lessons learned, that family is not defined solely by blood, that boundaries are sacred, and that genuine love is protective, not exploitative. My words flow easily, a reflection of the peace I now inhabit. Lila's gentle breathing beside me reminds me that I have protected what matters most. The day ends with a quiet dinner, friends around the table, laughter filling the space. The sun sets over the city, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. I glance at the photographs lining the shelves, moments of growth, joy, and triumph captured forever. Each image tells the story of a life reclaimed from chaos and manipulation. As I tuck Lila into bed that night, she hugs me tightly and whispers, "Thank you, Mommy. Best day ever." Her words wrap around my heart, a final confirmation that our efforts, our boundaries, and our strength have created a life worth living. I stand by the window afterward, watching the stars emerge. The apartment is quiet, the world outside calm, and I feel a deep sense of completeness. The past, with all its betrayals and heartbreak, is behind us. The future, with all its possibilities, lies ahead. I close my journal and place it on the bedside table, the pen resting neatly atop it. A final, cinematic thought settles over me, soft but resolute. Boundaries protect, love nurtures, and life, when carefully tended, is radiant. Freedom,